Seinen refers to a type of manga typically filled with darker situation, more action, and sometimes gruesome events. Seinen is used to describe a demographic. Some examples of popular seinen manga include Berserk, Vinland Saga, Parasyte and Akira. In today's video, we'll be discussing how to create your own seinen manga comic or light novel and how to present it to your audience through art or through writing. So to begin this video, let's talk about some of the key aspects that go into this genre and how you can create your own manga or novel in this genre. First of all, you will need to create a grisly world with a harsher environment. One of the key points to seinen manga is that most of them take place in a more harsher world where the characters will need to rely on themselves in order to survive. Now, this doesn't entirely mean that the world itself has to be dangerous, but the world itself needs to be harsh. Your character needs to constantly be faced with difficult situations that challenge them. And even if this world is not so dark or gruesome to your character, it needs to seem like it is. Your character needs to face these difficult events head on and rely on their own strengths or abilities in order to survive in some way in this world. When you're doing this in a manga or comic, I highly recommend that you use wider panels to show the environment that your character is in. This is especially helpful if you're creating something more post-apocalyptic or a place where the environment is vastly different. You can use these panels as a way to display the harsh environment that your character needs to survive in. You can also use darker tones or darker shading to set the atmosphere. Develop characters with a reason to survive. When you're creating a seinen manga, as I mentioned before, your characters will be fighting against the world around them, in their own way of course. It may not be that the world itself is particularly dangerous, but your character is constantly faced with difficult situations that force them into these moments where they have to fight in some way in order to survive. But you also need to consider why your character is fighting to survive and give them a reason. Maybe it's because they want to be out of these difficult situations and they want to feel freedom, they want to protect the people they care about, or they want to protect themselves in some way. Maybe the whole world is at stake or is being overrun by terrible monsters, and your character is fighting against everything just for them to survive. And once you get to the core of what your character is fighting for, it can make them a much more powerful and interesting character in your seinen story. In the artwork, show what they look like as a direct result to having to survive. If your character is constantly fighting a lot, for example, maybe they're more muscular because of the fact that they have to fight and train. Characters may have shorter hair in order to keep it out of the way during battles, for example. Characters may even wear a certain disguise in order to blend in with the environment around them. You may want to create character reference sheets in order to keep a better idea of your character's design and appearance and consider why you're giving them a certain appearance. You also want to give your character a goal that sets your main character's entire world at stake. Now keep in mind that I say main character's entire world. This does not necessarily mean the whole world, but it can be. But you need to think about what means the entire world to your character, and you need to put that thing at stake. Basically, you need to give your character such an important goal that they may lose everything they care about if they fail. And that is usually one of the main core elements of seinen stories. It usually revolves around characters who may lose everything that they care about unless they do a particular thing or achieve their goal. And usually the goal is something extremely difficult, but your character is determined to reach that goal. If you're creating this as a manga, you should allow moments where you show your characters' expressions and their reactions to the scenes around them. Giving your characters these moments of vulnerability can show their human side and it can make them feel more powerful as a character. It can show that despite all of these things they go through, and despite the fact that they may be afraid of what they're walking into, they are still determined enough to do that and to push through these situations. As they continue on their journey to achieve this goal, force your character to traverse a dangerous world in order to get there. In a seinen manga, the world itself will usually be very harsh and dangerous, and characters will need to survive in various ways just to get across that world and to survive in that world. There may be a zombie apocalypse where your characters need to survive against these zombie characters. They may need to find something to achieve their goal or get to a certain place or even find a particular character, and they will need to go through this world and explore this world as they try to reach that goal. And as they continue to traverse this world over their journey, they may develop more as a character, learning more about themselves and how to be the person they need to be by the end of the book. Create designs that reflect this harsher world. If your character is in a setting where they need to survive, then your character would likely dress in a certain way that might protect them. They may have protective gear, armor, they may wear something that can help them blend in. Just consider what your character would need to wear in order to help them survive this harsh environment. Put your characters through the worst possible situations, but make them become a better character because of it. Your character may have to go through some terrible things in order to reach their goals and in order to reach the end of your book. But every time they go through a difficult moment and survive, they should grow as a character. They should learn something new and maybe understand themselves better or understand new techniques to help them survive. And so throughout the story, you need to consider who your character is at the beginning and then who they become over the course of going through these difficult events and who they will be by the end of the story. I also suggest that you show those moments where your character has to force themselves to go through these difficult situations. Show that fear and vulnerability. Even if this character is the toughest character ever, that doesn't mean that in every situation they're not going to feel afraid. In many cases, the toughest and strongest characters are the ones who have to work through their fears the most to get to that end point. So you need to show those moments of vulnerability through your character's body language. Maybe they clench their fists when they're scared or when they're trying to be stronger. Maybe you show their expressions or reactions to events. Now, at some point during this seinen manga or novel, I recommend that you force your character to lose something but gain something else. This is very harsh and very difficult for your character, but we're talking about seinen manga here. It is a harsher topic. It is a topic that usually focuses on darker atmospheres. So at some point throughout the story, even after your character has gone through all this difficult stuff, it shows a lot of character development if you force your character to lose something in that scene. It could refer to someone they really care about. Maybe they lose that person that they really care about the most. Maybe they lose something that is really important to them. Maybe they fail at a task they really had to achieve. And by failing, maybe things get even worse. But because they lose this thing in this story, they need to gain something else. Maybe they learn how to be stronger. Maybe they learn how to fight against a difficult enemy. Maybe they finally learn the weakness of the main villain in the story. But by losing something, they gain something else which helps them to become a better character in the story. And understanding this can help your characters to feel more believable. And this is usually what happens during the final points in the story where it seems like everything is lost. They call it, what do they call it? Basically, it's part of the hero's journey when your character feels like everything is lost and everything they have worked for has failed. But then that's when, in the next part, they get up to the highest point in the story where they have learned from everything they have faced and they become the hero that they need to be. So despite the things that they have lost, it helps them to grow as a character. And it is really important to show that character growth throughout the book, showing how, despite all the things they face, it helps them to become who they are now. And it helps them to get through this harsh environment and to achieve the goal they've been striving for throughout the whole story. So thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I had so much fun talking about this genre with you. I hope that today's video helped you to create your own seinen manga or novels. Thank you again for joining me in today's video, and I will see you in the next one.